Rain or shine, it's here to make you laugh. It's the Steamboat Comedy Podcast. It's the Steamboat Comedy Podcast. And now your host, Kyle Ruff.
And then we're going to play Spin the Bottle.
Yeah.
That would be more fun if I were there.
That's true. It's going to be weird when Matt starts kissing the camera.
Just swallow your
I
phone.
basically just have to make out with my dog.
Yeah, you just kiss the dog, and then we'll kiss our cat, and it'll be like the same.
I mean, it works on my OnlyFans, but, you know.
You're like, that's a different Zoom conference entirely.
Yeah.
Yes. And also, we're going to have to really talk detail about your OnlyFans. So I guess we'll just jump right in. I'm going to cut off, like I was already recording. I'm just going to cut that off.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to start.
Dude, that's professional as fuck.
That's what I do, baby.
Damn.
Keeping it so
You guys drink
professional.
He's like, get it all out of your system, please.
So I say, welcome in to the Steamboat Comedy Podcast, everybody.
Woo-woo.
I am your host, Kyle Ruff. I'm joined by Kaylin Smith. Say hello.
Oh, hey.
Also joined by Reed Belmonte. There you go.
Hey, y'all.
And Mr. Matt Newland.
Joe Rogan podcast at day, and then Joe Rogan podcast all day.
All day.
Check it out.
Ew.
Nailed it. Or Rogan's going to come on soon. He's going to be so happy that we gave him a plug.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think he needs it, honestly.
And we are joined by special guest, star of the Beginning of the End comedy show. For those who are here, Miss Mo Vida. Say hello, Mo.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're good.
Oh,
Scratching
good.
and surviving, you know.
Waiting for winter to fucking go away.
Yeah, waiting for winter to end finally, which it will not do apparently. So,
No,
yeah, how's it? Where are you at right now? Are you in Denver?
I am, yeah.
And you're getting ready to do a show, right?
Yeah, I've been pretty busy, so I'm excited. You know, tomorrow's 420, so I don't have anything on 420, but we've got some 420 shows coming up over the
Sick.
weekend. I'm headlining a benefit show for climate change, not for it, but to get excited. That sounded very right wing.
Just dumping carbon into the air.
Yeah. So it'll be a fun weekend.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I've seen. It looks like you've been doing a lot with Palette City Comedy too, huh?
Yeah, I did a show with them not too long ago. That was fun because there were a few other comics who were in from New York and stuff. So it was good to kind of get that New York vibe at a show.
Right on. Very cool. That's what we try to fake here. You know.
Very New York vibe here
Yeah,
in Steamboat.
so New York vibe.
Hey, by the way, Mo, the last time that I went to a 420 in Denver, I ended up in like a daylight juggalo parade, which seemed very unreasonable to me. How is it now? Like, that was like the first year of legalization. Is it still as fucking weird as it was back then?
Girl, I have no idea. We'll see. I don't think so. You know, now that corporations have taken over weed, it's probably not.
Right.
I honestly, I don't know what this year is going to be like, and you know, coming through COVID and all that. So, and the funny thing is I'm not like a huge stoner at all. So it's hilarious to me that I'm headlining a show.
You'll be the only like not high person there. It'll be great.
Yeah, basically they're just gonna be like narc. But it's legal, so I'm not, you know, being a narc. But yeah, it'll be fun though.
Nice. Yeah, well, cool. So yeah, we just want to talk a little bit about your last trip up here to Steamboat Springs, beautiful Steamboat Springs, for our Beginning of the End comedy show, which the four of us had the pleasure of joining you in. And that was what, I guess 2 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago now? How long ago was that? What is today?
What is
It's
I guess like a
April.
month ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1 month ago.
Almost. I think it was the end of March, right?
Yes.
26th.
Yeah. 26th. Okay, so about 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Glad
Which-
we dialed that down.
Yes, yeah. Very important details for the podcast here. When I put this out a week from now because I'm lazy. But yeah, we had a great time. Shows sold out. What would you think about the whole experience? Did you have a great time or what?
It was amazing. I mean, first of all, the pleasure was all mine.
Oh.
No, you guys did an amazing job. I've not, seen the Steamboat comedy scene. So, first of all, kudos on selling out 4 shows, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday. That's a big deal. And, it's great working with everybody and definitely a funny scene up there. So I'm always really impressed when it's a smaller town. I mean, I know you guys don't have as many options to get up. So it's always really impressive when you see truly funny people. Yeah, I mean, Steamboat Whiskey Company was a great venue, both like the layout and to have a show there, but the staff was really awesome too. And so I really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it was great.
You're just being nice because it was a dog-friendly bar.
I mean, it did help. My little pooch enjoyed it.
Good. How is Mando?
Mando is probably shitting on my floor at the moment.
Small price to pay
He's
for the Steamboat
way
Comedy
bigger.
Podcast.
What's that?
I said small price to pay for the Steamboat Comedy Podcast.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say I don't do that on my own anyhow? Yeah, he's much bigger than he was. He's still a handful, and he's doing well. He's big. He's like 35 pounds now. He's going to be a big boy.
Oh,
He's
my
only
goodness.
4 months.
Hell yeah. Well, we had to get the dog information out of the way. This is the Steamboat Comedy Podcast. You know that.
This is Dog Time
He would
USA.
love to be your mascot. I know you have the moose, but if you want a dog, he's going to be the size of a moose. So he would love to be your mascot.
Nice. Next show, we'll strap some antlers on him and get him a cigarette, and then he can be our mascot.
Perfect. You can just get the staff to feed him bacon again. He's all yours. Trust me.
Nice. That's how we get Reed to show up, too.
That makes sense.
Cool. You guys got any
Okay,
other
I
questions?
do have a question because Spencer put me on the spot right before this and was like, you must ask this question. And the first time he phrased it, I was like, absolutely not. I'm not asking that. So after revision, what he wants me to ask is, this is like a kind of a heady question. So here you go. Directly from Spencer Powell. It's not mine.
Spencer Powell.
I know, right? God damn it. But basically,
I like how you want to make sure who I should hate for this.
no,
question.
yeah, you should. I'm just like really making that a line. And when he listens to this later, he's gonna fucking be so pissed. But the basic question is, he wants to know if you've noticed that, like, in general, when you tell jokes, you get more empathetic responses from females over males. So, for example, when you tell a joke and somebody goes, "Aw," is it mostly a female response? Or do you find that, like, men are more easily, like, able to laugh off just like, hey, like, you can joke about anything and it's not a big deal? This was directly the question Spencer wanted me to ask.
Terrible question, Spencer.
Fucking terrible question.
Yeah,
but I told him
Spencer.
I told him I would do it. Oh shit. He's
I
like,
mean, it depends on the joke. I try not to do a lot of groaners or ahs. I would like to think that. So I do some jokes that do get that response where people are like, "Ah," and it's, I think, pretty split. And then I just remind them that I have a therapist so they can laugh at my jokes and it's fine. But as far as just in general, I kind of had to learn early on, make friends with the women in the audience, because sometimes it can be intimidating to see a woman on stage commanding a room, which that's what you do as a comic, right?
Yeah.
And they, like, guys will hesitate to laugh if their girl isn't laughing. So it's like, make her laugh. That gives him permission.
yeah. And to be honest, like, not to be like, oh, whatever about it, but if we're gonna go like heady for a split second, I'm gonna do it because, I mean, in the spirit of Spencer Powell, like, if it's not a TED Talk, then like, really, what is it?
And it's not his Spencer's comedy. Yeah.
I mean, that's why I respect that dude so much. But at the same time, I feel like that it's very easy to also get that response out of both men and women. It just depends on what the subject matter is. Like, you make a
Totally,
good
the
abortion.
empathetic, the empathetic, like, aw. I mean, it just, totally depends on what you're saying. When I get that response, I feel like it's split. I really do.
I kind
I
of
also
like
don't
it.
pay attention to men as much, so no, I'm kidding.
They don't know what they're talking about anyway. So.
Fuck them.
Well, and to be honest, like, I've gotten that response before, and it's like, sometimes you don't expect it, and that's always like the weird thing when like somebody just like awes at a joke. You're like, no, dude, it's a joke. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, they're not. This isn't real. Like,
Well, when it's one of those that's kind of tough to swallow, and so this is like a point of pride for me. I did a show in Boulder, Colorado, and for those who don't know Boulder, it's called the Republic of Boulder. It's very liberal. They're very woke to the point where, like, oh my God, go back to sleep, take a fucking nap, Boulder.
Patagonia created a town.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, they're great, but I'm painting a picture, right? And so I did the Boulder comedy show, and I did this joke, and I was kind of on the fence about it, more so because I hadn't really polished it up enough, so I didn't know how to do it. And I don't recall exactly how I phrased it, but basically the point is, you've got like the right working on, abolishing abortion and protecting gun rights. And then you have liberals who are marching for reproductive rights and they want gun control. And I'm in the middle, like, so when do I kill the kid? And like, the most beautiful thing happened because they laughed at the joke, but then realized what they were laughing at and collectively went, oh, and then I shamed them and said, fuck you, Boulder. You already laughed. We're all going to hell. You might as well keep laughing. And they did. And that is one of my most beautiful comedy moments.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Let me ask you something honestly. If you had your choice and you were only narrowed down to the two, would you
I wouldn't
rather?
fuck any of you guys. No, I'm sorry. Go on. What?
There we go.
Would you want?
He's cute.
Guys, I said guys. I totally go down on Caitlin. Okay, no, go on.
Hey! So we're doing our next show with you when? Next week sound good?
You're a good show.
You're way too used to being on camera on the internet.
I make my money.
But if you had your choice, would you rather only perform for a Republican audience or a liberal audience?
Ooh.
Here's the funny thing. Republican audiences are less politically correct. So unless you're directly attacking the things that, they feel are important, and honestly, more so, unless you're talking about things that they just regularly get attacked on, they will laugh at anything. Liberal audiences are touch and go. I mean, that's what's hard is I've noticed that in some instances, these are broad strokes because you never get an audience that's totally one or totally the other, but
Sure.
there's a lot these days. There's a lot of being upset on behalf of, and that irritates me. I'm going to be really honest. At a comedy show, like, I understand being an ally, but at a comedy show, and I feel like we've also lost our sense of exaggeration and hyperbole and sarcasm and parody, and those are all tools of our trade. And when people can't grasp, like you guys were saying, it's a joke, and sometimes the way we make that joke is by being sarcastic, right? And being and exaggerating the absurdity of something. And now you've got a lot of people, and this actually is true for both a little bit. They'll hear a trigger word and then it's just game over. A friend of mine, this
Period.
is my example, but what's that?
Period.
Yeah.
That's why.
I mean, it's
it's just like, oh, bummer. Now we're going there or something. You know, people have that.
Yeah, they just don't. They stop listening, and that's very irritating. And it's one thing for you to tell me, I listened, I heard, I understood, and I didn't think it was funny. Fair. That's totally fair. But, you know, like a friend of mine was performing in New York, and he did a joke about gun control. He's for gun control, but this woman in the audience heard guns and felt the need to come lecture him after the show about how she's against guns, she's for gun control, and she didn't like the fact that he was doing that joke. And he's like, we are literally in agreement. Did you not listen to the joke? And that's the kind of stuff that unfortunately I do find more with like what we're describing as liberal audiences.
Well, and I mean, I do love a segue, so this is the only reason I'm bringing this back. But, like, that is the difference between, like, an all response. Like, it's, like, the response where you recognize that what you're talking about has, like, gone from, like, a joke realm into something real. But it should always be that way. I feel like that what makes jokes funny is that they are real on some level. And, like,
Sure.
and it's, like, it's a place where you can have open discourse on it. And if you can't, if you just, like, are literally just going to be so triggered that you don't take any responsibility for your response, but you just hear something and completely write it off, like, you're never going to get anywhere. And that's the, like, but beyond Republican or liberal audiences, that's the audience I fear. It's like the audience that would just write you off.
Yeah, it's becoming more prevalent, and I don't think it's going to be split so much along those lines as much as it's going to be, you know, this is going to make me sound a million years old, but I just feel like younger people are really starting to live that life of, you know, I need to be aware of everything. I need to be upset about everything. And it's really, you know, listen, I don't set out to hurt people's feelings. That's not the point, but it's a little bit absurd to think that I'm going to get up in a room full of people I've never met before, and in some way you feel like I'm speaking directly to you and trying to offend you. And I think it was Ricky Gervais. He got into a Twitter fight with a woman who I guess was going after him because he had done some sort of a joke that was around like rape or sexual assault. And she was like, you know, that's awful. You don't know who could be in your audience who had that experience. And, you know, somebody could be in your audience and it could really upset them. And his response was, wow, that would be a really weird door policy if we asked everybody upon entry if they've been raped. I'm just like, God damn it, Ricky, you're so fucking good.
Right.
But, you know, the point he's making is, you know, come on. Like, this isn't what we're doing.
And sometimes comedy is about, like, picking up something that no one's ever thought about and being like, how ridiculous is this that we do this thing? Like, I mean,
That's
most
what
good
it used to be about.
Yeah, like most good jokes are like, hey, have you ever thought about how fucked up it is that we just like live our whole lives through Amazon and that's like everything? Or how fucked up it is that like we have targeted ads on Instagram, or how like I'm literally pulling from all of y'all's jokes because like that's what comedy is. It's just like, hey, have you ever thought about how fucked up this is? And let me just describe it to you in a way that's hilarious. That's a joke. And if you can't talk about things that are fucked up, then where do you have to go in comedy? Like you can't.
I totally agree. I mean, that's kind of what we do. We're like these weird, fucked up sociologists that shine a light on things. You know, it's funny. One of the jokes that I get the awe response on pretty regularly is when I talk about the 2 acceptable forms of birth control for the Catholic Church. And I'm like, the first one is abstinence. Hilarious. Get the priests on board first. And like everybody awes that. And I'm like, dude, that's not even a joke. Them's is facts. And people get like real kind of, you know, I'm like,
yeah.
Priests fuck children. The Pope even said that.
Yeah.
Like,
you're just taking a situation. You're like, have you ever thought about how fucked up this is? And it's like, and it plays as humor. And it also, that's like what comedy is so good for. It's just like gives you a chance without like anger, without like all of the personalization to talk about some shit. and be like, have you ever even thought about how fucked up roundabouts are? Like, I don't know, anything. Like, airplane food. Fucking who are they trying to keep out of these things? Like, that's what comedy is. Like, and if you can't do that without people getting offended, then it's just like you've defeated the purpose of the fucking genre.
Also, who are these people who don't know how fucked up comics are? Like, who is coming to a comedy show and expecting well-adjusted, mature, well-balanced adults? Like, what the fuck? I had a bad childhood. Why do you think I'm up here talking about my twat? Like, hello?
Yeah, I got an email after our show with Sean and Shane when they came up a month before you came up, and it was
you didn't tell me about this email.
Oh, I didn't. Oh God! So they sent it to the. Did I show you guys this email?
I saw that.
You saw it. I didn't show you. Did I show you?
I don't think so.
I got it somewhere still, but some old woman sent an email to the whiskey company and was basically just like, I can't believe we came to this show. It was the most unprofessional thing that I've ever seen. The last comic, who was Sean Patton, like I can't believe that you'd let this guy go up there stoned and do comedy. Which Sean barely even smokes weed, from what I understand.
He was concussed.
Well, he was concussed. That's to be fair.
And 2, we're in fucking Steamboat.
Yeah, right. But this big email, and like the owner was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "This person's an idiot." And I was like, "Just ignore them." And she's like, "Oh, I'll say something to him." And I don't know if she said anything, but then 3 days later, they sent an email to me directly saying the same thing, but they ended it with, "I've never been more glad to not be part of your generation."
Yeah, me neither.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
What an honor.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I find that so fascinating, and honestly, I blame marketing. So hear me out.
Facebook.
Like, it used to be, but seriously, like, it used to be where you would watch TV back in the olden days, and you would just watch whatever advertisements came on the TV, right? And yes, they would try to figure out, like, who's our demographic, who's watching the evening news versus who's watching a sitcom. But now, like, with online stuff and algorithms, everything is so geared towards you, and it's this weird dichotomy.
It's an echo
where
chamber.
We're being
Yeah.
spoon-fed, right? Like, we're being spoon-fed everything, and it's making us believe, even this boomer lady, it's making us believe that, like, everything in our life should be geared towards us. And if it's not exactly to my liking, then there's something wrong. And
I think
it's
it's a
like,
complaint. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Well, you just wanna
I've
feel
thought about
important.
this a lot, because I'm like, it really did used to be like, I don't like this song, I'm going to change the radio channel. I don't like this show, I'm going to change the channel. We didn't used to be this narcissistic about things that were happening to us. It was like, I don't like it, so I'm going to fucking not watch it.
Right. What blew my mind is it was like Sean didn't do anything different than he normally did, and the way I was explaining it to the owner, because she wasn't there for that show, and was kind of like, "What happened?" And I was like, "This woman doesn't know what she's talking
That's
about."
always tough.
Yeah, I know it bothered me, but I was like, it's like buying tickets to a Metallica show and then being like, "What's all this heavy metal guitar music?" You know what I mean? It's like, well, you should look what you're buying a
Don't you
ticket
wonder,
for.
though? Yeah, I wonder, too, like, sometimes these people, I'm like, did you just accidentally end up here for $20 a ticket? No. Like, what the fuck?
do you guys
You're obviously old, so you're old enough. You've bought a few tickets in your life. You've been to a few shows. I mean, it's just, I think people just have this need to complain and be heard, and I've literally stood in people's faces and been like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
And just repeated that into their face. And they'd be like, well, but my feelings were hurt. And I'm like, congratulations. You had a visceral reaction. It means you're still alive. Hallelujah. Nobody else cares. Like, nobody fucking cares.
Yep.
That's the thing with like old people, especially when they get near the end, they want to feel so important because they know it's almost over. So they're like, "Please listen to me. Please listen to me.
It's my last chance to save humanity.
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm not new
Don't you kind
generation."
of wish?
Liar.
Don't you kind of wish this bitch would die and then, like, somebody would, like, have a bad Yelp review about her funeral? I didn't like the sandwiches that were served.
It'd be like, I really like the decor and the staff, but I didn't really care for the person who the funeral was centered around. So 2 stars.
She was so stiff. Like, what the fuck? We came for a show and she's stiff, just laying there doing nothing? I'm so glad I'm not her generation.
See, the where that all falls apart for me is like, you guys, I had never even seen stand-up comedy before I did it for the first time, basically.
Really?
Shut up.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying I watched Netflix special, but I had never been to a live show.
Never seen it in person.
I'd never seen it
Gotcha.
in person. I'd never bought a ticket. So like, there's some level of intentionality that I assume goes into that because like literally, I'm into it enough that I do it now, and yet I had never bought a ticket for it. So it's like, what were you signing up for? Like these weren't the cheapest tickets ever. Like you spent some money,
Yeah,
and you
they
still
spent
came and you were
$100
like,
on a table.
What is this? I didn't think about it. I'm like, you spent $100 on it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand what you thought this was.
I also love,
wild.
like, it's at the end of the show. You know, that's like going to a restaurant and eating the full meal and then, like, a day later being like, we want our money back. The food was terrible.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, fuck you.
You're like, all right.
Oh, shit.
Those people aren't buying a comedy ticket. They're buying the potential to complain about something.
Right.
That's what they're going for. Like, ooh, something I can maybe complain
Yeah.
about later.
A ticket to bitch.
Yeah.
She's got a ticket to bitch. You know
I
that
do
Beatles song?
love bitching sometimes. Like, it's-
Speaking of overreacting from audiences, though, I have a joke about suicide, and I did this joke, and I didn't know this, but apparently in the audience there was 2 people that had already killed themselves.
Shut the fuck up.
It's probably because they
They were
heard my
already dead,
opening and they
yeah.
were already dead.
I was like, we got to get those dead people out of the audience.
Hey, at least
Carrying
they
them out,
get
like,
it.
oh, I'm so sorry.
the biggest all joke that I consistently get and consistently keep doing is like, I'm a millennial, which means like I don't have health insurance. Well, I do. It only covers faith healing. And then it's not going great. And then the follow up to it is like, yeah, my generation was promised hoverboards, but all we got was mass shootings. And then everyone awes, and I'm like, it's fucking true.
Yeah,
man.
that's funny. That's fucking funny.
Yeah, where's my goddamn hoverboard?
I
Yeah.
was just like, I just would have rather had a hoverboard, but instead scientists are all just concerned with reproving that the world is round. Like, that's
That's
the
just
only thing we spend money on anymore. Like, it's fine.
That punchline's just like a punch in the stomach to him, though.
I
Like,
know. They're just, like everybody,
Mass
like,
shootings.
it literally it
Yeah.
comes out like that. It comes out like the final sigh out of their abdomen as I punch them in the stomach.
Yeah.
Like,
They need it.
Yeah.
do.
You gotta learn the hard way, just like those kids in those shootings.
That's why we have drills.
That's why we got drills.
Didn't you
They
pay
tell
attention?
you to listen at school, goddammit, listen.
Yeah, no kidding. No child left behind. That's what I say.
That entire experience would have been different if the audience members have guns. Just saying.
Arm the
And
audiences.
there are
That's the move.
audiences like
Arm the
that.
audiences. That'll be our next show.
There are
Have to
audiences
have a gun
that
to get
will
in.
tell you they are packing heat.
Yes.
Just
It
a
is,
reminder.
they probably are.
That's gonna be. We'll do the Gervais model. We'll on the way in. We'll be like, "Do you have a gun? And have you been raped?" And it needs to be yes and yes, or else you can't come in.
But like, so it's interesting that you bring that up because I do have a joke, and it is hard. It is hard because, for example, I did a show on Friday, and I did this joke, which I'm probably going to retire because I'm getting sick of it at this point. It
Yeah.
does play very well with Republicans. But it's basically a
mine
joke
too.
about, I'm in my 40s, so if you roofie my drink, you're flirting. And I'm not particularly afraid of millennial guys anyhow, because if I put peanut dust in my panties and have gluten for lunch, you don't have an EpiPen, I win this rape, right? That's kind of the quick and dirty of the joke.
Really
And I did it the other night. And somebody who's heard me do it a million times pulled me aside, and she was just like, I don't know what it is. I heard it tonight, and I've been roofied 3 times in my life, and it really brought up a lot of bad memories. And we sat there and talked about it for a long time. And, of course I'm empathetic. Of course I'm empathetic to the fact that, this triggered something in her, and I want to hear it out. But, I did feel like pointing out to her, I said, the whole catalyst for that, the whole point of it is flipping it, the absurdity of me and flipping it and being like, I win this rape because you don't have an EpiPen.
Because
like,
you're such a little bitch that you literally are allergic to peanuts, and that's why I win this rape.
So,
Like,
and I mean, I don't think the joke would play well if it was a guy being like, I win this rape, but the whole point is it's a woman saying like, I win this rape. And it kind of came off of, I mean, I didn't steal it, but I remember, I think I was doing it, and then I heard Lynn Koplitz. I don't know if you guys know her. She's a great comic, and she was doing a similar joke where she's talking about being an older, being older, like not old, just older, and living in New York City. And people would ask her constantly, like, aren't you afraid of getting raped? She's like, are you kidding me? Somebody crawls in my window over my fire escape and tries to rape me, I'm gonna mouth kiss them and tell them I love them and they're my boyfriend now. And it's, I mean, if you can't understand the absurdity, like, she doesn't want you to fucking rape her. Like, we're not making fun of rape.
no.
If anything, that joke is making fun of men and their commitment issues and intimacy issues. And that's what bothers me, is we're really not understanding what jokes are about anymore.
No, they just hear the word.
Well, they hear the word and they shut down. And and I guess that is like, if you wanted to get like technical and be like, that's what triggering is like you shut down some of your logical response to something. Like, sure, I guess that is really what it is, because people do shut down and like they're like, I don't even know who the butt of this joke is, but I just like used language I didn't like, and you're like, all right. But like, isn't this the point, to be able to like take it and like put it up to like the test of like, hey, look at this, and just like decide something about it,
Yeah, well, I mean, if you don't make it absurd, if you don't exaggerate and you don't make it funny because it is absurd, then you're just having a TED Talk, which maybe that's what some people want. That's what they're buying tickets to. I didn't get the memo. So I'm going to be an asshole.
I think now people deal way too much in absolutes, and it gets worse as the years go on. And there's too many people that think either the world is all bad or the world is all good. When in reality, it's a mix of both. But if you have people that deal in absolutes,
then they're a Sith.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yes.
That worked.
I was thinking it the whole time. As soon as you said it, I was thinking it, and then I started thinking about something else.
I'm sorry, sidetrack. Kyle and I have been getting this thing down from Moneyball like I'm Brad Pitt, and I finish sentences going like, and then the truck went
over there.
Thank you very much, Kyle.
Beautiful.
But honestly, yeah, like it is coming to a point where it's absolutes, and it's really frustrating because, as you said, it is a shadow that goes over like what jokes are in the first place. And
people do. I'm absolutely noticing they genuinely want to be upset. As my old Eastern European mother says, they don't have real problems, so they create them. She grew up after, and it's true, because she grew up in a war-torn country. They didn't have food, and she's like, let me tell you, when you're running from bomb sirens and wondering where your next meal is coming from, you don't fucking care about like semantics.
Yeah, there's no one in Syria worrying about microaggressions right now. They've got other things to. They got macroaggressions happening.
Mad macro.
Mad macro. Mad Max grow. Yeah.
And it's not, it's not to say like we shouldn't strive to be thoughtful or inclusive or things like that.
Sure.
But I also think we shouldn't strive to constantly be looking for reasons to be upset. Because if you look for reasons to be upset, you will find reasons to be upset.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely always true, I believe. And to be honest, like with satire, it's the point of it is to bring it to those radical extremes, to bring it to black and white thinking, because that's what makes it funny. Like A Modest Proposal and Eating Babies isn't funny if you don't understand satire. And like I only bring this up because I'm a little bitter. I showed a South Park episode in one of my group therapy classes because it's been a long-standing dream for me to be able to like teach South Park. And I had somebody just straight up walk out because they were just very offended. And I was like, "This is satire. It's just bringing it to the logical extreme." Which
what episode was it?
It's the Caesar Milan episode.
Yeah.
Someone walked out on that one?
Yeah.
What?
There's a whole scene where one of the nannies that Cartman drove insane is eating her own feces. And
Oh yeah. That's a pretty gross one.
Yeah, that's a lever.
Yeah, I know. It And the point I'm trying to make is that like people can't understand satire when they're already living in extremes. They literally believe that that's actually what you mean because they're like, I do think like that concretely and in black and white. And you're like, well, satire is going to be very scary for you then, like, because you literally are like, oh, this bitch is trying to eat babies, and you're like, no, it's a modest proposal. It's Thomas Paine, man. And they're like, get out. I'm like, my English degree literally means nothing. Like,
Thomas who?
I'm constantly reminded.
Yeah, dude. Major Payne's a good movie.
Yeah, great movie. Damon Wayans, he's the best. Thomas Paine.
Do you guys know who Tracy Ullman is?
Yeah.
You know Tracy Ullman? She's a British comic. She had like a sketch show a long time ago, but she did a sketch about like running a group therapy session for young people who are overly woke. And
I saw that. It's incredible. Actually.
Did you see that? First of all, it's written so well. I'm like, fuck you.
I know, right? You're like, I toast to you and I hate you at the same time.
I know, but it is so good. It's worth watching because it's really, really good. And at the very end, there's this line that I just repeat in my head all the time when I'm dealing with people like that. And I'm just like, oh. So, but anyhow, it is very well done. And it essentially is somebody who's holding a group therapy session for people who just are overly woke and they're trying to, you know, they're finding everything to be racist or problematic or whatever. And it's funny because she's older, so she's like, well, you know, the point is you guys are actually going to be massively right-wing by the time you're in your 30s, so don't worry about it.
There's another comedian, this tall, skinny guy who does a lot of like sketch comedy, making fun of like woke people and like woke comedians shutting each other down. I can't remember his name. Fuck, that's gonna bug me.
Seinfeld?
Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah. That's who it was.
Okay, good.
Comedians in cars talking about woke issues.
Really woke people. Are they woke? Are they just half awake?
What's the deal with stuff?
I have no idea, Jerry. I have no idea.
No, and I mean, like, I don't know. I get this a lot because my sister, who I love and is honestly just fantastic in every way, lives in Portland, so she lives in kind of like a bubble, and then she like tells me stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, she tells me stuff, and so it like works its way through the grapevine to my ignorant ass and Steamboat, very much out in the boonies. Like, this place is very redneck. Did you guys know?
Oh, yeah.
Well, if it's inside, it's not. But if you throw a rock about 100 yards outside, someone will shoot it.
I get told on the reg how redneck, specifically Steamboat, is. Like, that's what I'm saying. Portland is on its own continent.
Oh, well, if you compared to Portland, then like,
yes.
you know, fucking
only
Melissa Milano is a
Braswell.
redneck
Yeah,
compared to Portland.
every other thing is. So
Yeah.
I get constantly updated, which is like good, but sometimes at some point I'm just like, don't take a diagnosis as your truth. You know, at some point it's just like, I have anxiety, you need to work around it. I'm just like, maybe you should
Yeah, it
learn
sounds like
some
your
coping
problem.
skills.
Yeah.
Like,
Try
I don't know,
meditating,
like,
asshole.
The point of us,
Yeah,
like,
right.
the point
Change your
of us
diet.
learning more about mental health wasn't to give people endless excuses. It was just like, hey, this is what you got to work around. Do it.
Yeah.
At least it's not like, I don't know,
That's a
polio.
great point. That's such a good point. It's I mean that's it. As a comic, I would be exhausted if I were checking in with every table. Like, is this okay? Like, did you just get divorced? Because I'm going to talk about divorce.
It would be a good sketch.
It could be a good sketch, yeah. Like, tell a joke
Comedy
and just
in
like
2040.
yeah, everyone vote and tell me if that was acceptable. If you have a lived experience, yeah.
And then you'd still get somebody complaining about how the show wasn't funny.
Oh, God, I'm not in your generation.
I called Kaylin's sister Rachel Maddow. I just wanted to throw that in there.
To be fair, she kind of looks like Rachel Maddow.
To be fair.
It's the haircut.
It's intentional.
It's hashtag hero worship. Am I right?
No, I mean, she, like, love her. She'll probably listen to this podcast later. Please don't be mad. But at the same time, it is hard because there's standards that we're held to at this point, which I feel like make it hard to do comedy effectively because it's like what it is.
No,
Yeah.
it's easy. You just do comedy.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
Yeah, and if they don't like it, they can suck your pee-pee.
Yeah, they can absolutely eat a big old plate
They
of
can all
shit.
Well,
I mean, the issue though becomes, you know, like when you're running a show, right?
Yeah.
You can't help but have to think about crap, like now is this one person who's complaining and, the owner wasn't there or whomever, or the manager, now is my show going to get shut down because they don't want to deal with it. They're not saying the person's right. They just don't want to deal with it. And then, when you're a small business owner, if somebody has a good time, they tell a friend. They have a bad time, they tell 10 people. And I think that's where it starts to get into an area where as comics we have to care because we may not want to, acquiesce to it, but we kind of have to care because if our show's going to get pulled because we don't have good management on our side at that venue, that's going to be like, this is comedy. If you don't, you can see who's on the bill, you can look them up, you can see their videos. If you don't like it, you shouldn't come. Like you need strong, strong support in that way from a venue where they know how to work with the person, but they also have a perspective of, is this a long time person? Was it really a comic issue? Were they terrible? Listen, it happens. Like if a comic is stumbling drunk on stage and doesn't do their job, that's one thing. But, as much as we want to be like, fuck you, we don't care, it starts to enter a realm where we kind of have to care enough to figure out how to, work around it without being censored.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a line that we have to walk all the time. Even with just recently with open mics, I had the owner of the whiskey company came up and they're like, hey, we're not happy with this one really dickhead guy named Mac who we talked about on the last podcast.
Literally the nicest guy.
The nicest guy in the world said the most mundane heckle to these guys, and then the manager at the whiskey company pulled me aside and was like, that was really mean. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? But anyways, that's kind of neither here nor there.
Oh, well, you brought it up.
Whatever.
But I mean,
they don't listen.
Mo, honestly, I think that you're right. It's a hard situation to straddle the needs of a small town community, especially where you have to there's only 5 bars. You can't get just continuously kicked out of them. You have to address the needs of your audience. And if you're just constantly pissing everybody off, then I've seen there's a difference. I've seen some sets that are just not tasteful. That actually have crossed the line, and it's weird. Yeah. I can't tell you where that line is. But it exists. And when you
I think it's with intention. Yeah. I think the line is intention. And I think we all know it. I always say comedy is like a self-cleaning oven. We know when somebody's coming to open mics and they're coming because they want an excuse to be racist and they think that comedy is it, right? Oh, it's a joke. And we all have, well, maybe not all of us, but most of us have a gut instinct. We understand, their intention isn't bad. Maybe it was not a very well-crafted joke, and you can talk to them about that. And then you know those people who are just like, I want to use the N-word, and I'm not going to get beat up if I do it under the guise of comedy.
What's the N-word?
Nincompoop.
Oh, I knew it.
The difference between pornography and nude drawings. It's just you have a gut instinct. Literally, that's
the Supreme Court ruling on porn.
The Supreme Court ruling. It's the difference. You have a gut instinct.
I know it when I see it.
You're like, I know it when I see it, and you're like, yeah, I know some hateful shit when I see it. Just like I know porn when I see it. I'm just like, that's not artistic, man. That's just for jacking off.
I can spot porn. I can spot porn a mile away, babe.
You're right. Hateful stuff is just for jacking off. I agree.
No, Mo brought up a good point that people will just go out of their way to do that, and I've seen it before as well. And I try to explain to my relatives and everything when it comes to comedy, and they're like, what if somebody goes up and says something so distasteful and racist or just god awful? I'll be like, well, for one, they're going to probably have 0 people laugh at them.
Yeah.
And if you've ever had that
The
happen
silence
to
will get 'em.
you, you're never going to come back if you really suffered that hard. And 2, they're going to get weeded out by the community that is existing. If we have somebody come up like 2 times and they're just talking about the Jews like a little too much for no reason.
I'm like, whoa, buddy, that
Like,
wasn't funny.
We
Yeah.
already got a Jew guy here.
Yeah, we got a Jew guy here.
You
Like,
can only have one, buddy.
yeah,
Small scene.
Yeah, go back to Craig. Oh! And,
Hey.
yeah, nevertheless. Nevertheless, yeah, it's like I try to explain to people, like, trust me, like, those bad people will be weeded out and not come back.
Yeah, they won't last.
They don't have a
No.
platform for very long.
Absolutely not.
But isn't that so reassuring that they do get weeded out? Like that they don't have an audience? Like, isn't it so nice to know that, like...
It's very zen. It's like
yeah,
karma.
yeah,
It's
no,
great.
well,
Yeah.
like, you know what the worst thing is for a narcissist? Which is, I'm going to assume most of those people, because it's just like, why would you even think anyone cared about this opinion unless you kind of borderline narcissist? But the point is that the worst thing for them is to have no response, no laugh, and that is ultimately what our culture does. As much as it, like, also is overly PC and overly offended, it also is just like, yo, rape jokes that are just blatantly hateful towards women aren't funny.
No.
Right.
Racist shit isn't funny. Like, we have, like, gotten to
Yeah.
a place where, like, it is kind of nice that nobody's just like, inward, 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 and being like, that's my set. And you're like, why? Like,
Yeah.
It's not funny. That's what it comes down to. Is it fucking
Yeah,
funny
is it
or
funny
not?
or is it not funny?
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's
it's,
not
like, you can
funny.
hold stuff up, but, like, you have, I don't know, there is something more to it. You have to do it in a satirical way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've always found it's a fine line, just shifting gears a little bit, just because something we were talking about earlier reminded me of it, of making sure you don't piss off venues and stuff. I've found that for me, like, the earlier you are in a show, the less I try to be shitty with the audience, because the more they're on board, the more you can kind of get away with being like, oh, like, shut up and laugh at my jokes, or don't get so offended. But
Yeah.
like, if you're the first one up, you got to be like, all right, okay, not that, okay, let's get the feng shui going a little bit. But then as long as like 2 or 3 people before you kill, then you can do whatever the fuck you want, kind of, or at least more
But
so.
you also, like, and I have to bounce here pretty soon, but you also, when you're picking a venue, you have to kind of figure out, you know, if they're really on board with having comedy, if they understand what comedy is. Because I've talked to venues, and it was so clear that, you know, in their head, they're like, oh, well, I'm seeing comedy everywhere. That's going to bring money in. I don't really want to do marketing. Our own business is failing. So, you know, we'll just try this. And they didn't understand it. They weren't giving us a spot because they wanted to support comedy or artistry or any of that. And I think that's where you run into issues, is when you're really not in a true partnership with your venue. Because again, like you pointed out, Kyle, if you respect the audience, you respect the venue, then they should also have your back, because people are going to complain. They just do. They should know that, because people complain without a comedy show there.
Oh yeah, I mean, they'll find anything. My fries were cold. 2
Yeah.
stars on TripAdvisor or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
wear a mask.
Yeah, right. People still are like, I can't believe they made me wear a mask. It's like, come on, guy. Like, how long have we been doing this shit? Anyways, which that should maybe possibly knock on wood be opening up a little bit more here soon. Things are trending that way. We'll see.
Well, this was really nice, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for-
This is a great chat. Do you guys got any other quick questions for Mo? Things to say before she has to go do her thing?
Quick one, Mo. When you're coming up with material, do you write in a book, type on a computer, or just figure it out on stage?
I write. I still write.
Pen
It
to
helps
paper?
it stick in my head more, and I don't trust my phone.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Like, you know, a lot of people look at their phones, and every time I try to do that, like at an open mic and stuff, something goes wrong. So I write, and but you know, the great thing about open mics, or even if you're doing a show and you can kind of put a newer joke into the set, is that's really where you get sometimes great tags that you didn't think of, where it's just kind of flowing and it comes out of your mouth, which is also why you should be recording your sets.
Oh yeah, we've been recording all of them. Actually, it's on my to-do list to sift through our last couple open mics.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys ever want them, let me know. I've also got the
We can
recording
send-
of
we
our
can send 'em
shows.
to Mo too.
If
Mo,
you-
we're gonna send you
Okay.
all of our open mic
Yeah.
sets.
And if you could just give us detailed bulletin points of each joke, we'd really appreciate it. You don't mind, right?
I
Great.
have nothing better to do, sadly.
Well, anyways, I guess Mo will let you go do your thing. Where are you performing tonight?
I actually do a show called Mondays with Mo at 9 o'clock Mountain on it's a streaming platform called Haps TV. So
nice.
my guest is probably coming into my green room right now. So, but this was fun. I'm glad this worked out. You guys are amazing. You're doing great things. So I hope I get to see you soon.
Awesome. Yeah, you're the best too. We appreciate you.
Thank you,
And
Mo.
yeah, we got some stuff coming up this summer. We'll definitely keep you in the loop.
Yeah, and if you guys are down in Denver, hit me up.
Hell yeah.
Holla.
Tell Mando we love him.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go clean up his poop and then get on my show.
All right. See you later, Mo. Thanks
Bye, guys.
again.
Be well. Take care. Have a good one.
Mo Vida, everybody.
Oh.
Rain or shine, it's here to make you laugh. It's the Steamboat Comedy Podcast. It's the Steamboat Comedy Podcast. And now your host, Kyle Ruff.